Hello and welcome to the Brothers-in-Law podcast. I'm your host, Razz, and you are listening to the first episode of the show. And today we have an incredible first guest, the best guest I could get for the first episode, the Honorable Judge Quintin McGee. He's a brother that I really look up to, and I have for decades now. Shortly after recording this episode, he was appointed by Governor Roy Cooper to Special Superior Court Judge. So round of applause for that. That's incredible. Thank you guys for listening. Before we start the show, I'm just going to give a brief overview of Judge Quintin McGee. He has a judicial philosophy that is based upon the fundamental principle that each case should be decided based on two things, the facts and the law. He has served as a defense attorney, prosecutor, district court judge, and now special superior court judge. Much of his career was serving the citizens of Bladen, Brunswick, and Columbus counties in North Carolina. Beyond that, he's active in the community by serving as a board member with the Cape Fear Council of Boy Scouts of America, Communities and Schools of Brunswick County, the United Way of the Cape Fear area, and volunteering with the 13th Judicial District's Teen Court program. Additionally, in 2021, he was appointed by the Chief Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court to serve on the Chief Justice's Task Force on Adverse Childhood Experiences, ACEs, and courts. The task force's mission is to understand the impact of adverse childhood experiences on children and to develop strategies for addressing them within our court system. He is a graduate of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, Go Hills, as a double major with a bachelor's degree in economics and management and society. He also received his law degree from North Carolina Central University School of Law. So check out the interview, leave a comment, let me know what your takeaway is, subscribe, like, all that jazz, share. And well, that's enough for me. Enjoy the interview. Judge Quintin McGee, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's an honor to be here. I'm privileged to be the first guest on the Brothers-in-Law podcast. So.
Hey. Thank you, man. I will be using that clip, so I appreciate that. So first question I'm going to ask everyone, I have a time machine right here in my briefcase. I'm going to send it to you here in a little bit. You have 5 minutes to go back in time, but you can only go back to your first day of law school. And you see yourself walking up to the door the first day. What advice do you give yourself?
Well, I think what I would tell myself is something that I try to live by now. And that is to begin with the end in mind, right? So walking through, or I'm about to walk through those doors of the law school, the thought is not just what's going on in this first day or first semester or first year of law school, but thinking about why it is that I'm here, why I've chosen to be here, why I've pursued this path. And, if I begin with the end in mind, that I have this goal of completing law school and practicing law and helping my community, then those are the things that are going to power me through when it gets tough, because law school is going to be challenging. There are going to be times where you may, doubt yourself or have second thoughts about your purpose of being there or what have you. Adversity will come. It will happen. If your mentality is strong enough, if your why is strong enough, then you're going to be just fine. So that's the one thing I would tell myself. Shortly behind that would be to network and build relationships. The folks that you encounter in law school are going to be your colleagues throughout life. A large number of them are going to be practicing in North Carolina. Some maybe even be practicing in the jurisdiction or the area of the state that you are in. So you need to build those relationships because those things can help you sustain you not only just in law school, but after law school when you're practicing law and building a practice or a career. Relationships are so important, and you need to be working on those while you're in law school.
Yeah, I agree. So what was the end in mind for you? Like, are you living the end in mind now, or do you have more goals that you like to accomplish, or like what end would you advise yourself on to keep in mind?
Well, I knew that, at least I thought my higher purpose was going to be to serve my community in a way that was beneficial, right? I didn't know where that was going to be necessarily. I knew I wanted to stay in North Carolina. But growing up, I didn't really know many attorneys and definitely not any attorneys of color that I had a personal relationship with. So, I wanted to be able to be that, to be an advocate for people in my community, for people in my social network and familial network, to have an attorney that they could come to with questions and seek advice and seek counsel. And so I'm absolutely living that. When I was in law school, I had started formulating, the ideas of maybe being a judge one day, and was able to accomplish that by 35. So, I would absolutely say that I've been able to, accomplish some of the things that I had in mind, and still got more to go. There's always more work to do. There's more people to help. And so, I keep that in mind, and that's the reason I get up and go to work every day.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Something I want to ask you about right away before we get any deeper. The ACE task force, the Adverse Childhood Experiences Task Force that you're a part of. What is that about? I mean, what is that?
I'm glad that you asked. That's something that I'm really proud of my work. So adverse childhood experiences is something that is really gaining a lot of movement in the social justice community. And it goes all the way back to a study that was done actually on the social determinants of health, right? So two doctors out in the Bay Area in California were doing a study to determine, why people were having health problems and things of that nature. And it just so happens that those issues, they came up with a scale of 10 questions, and those issues kind of cross over not only to the social determinants of health, but also the root causes of crime. It's adverse childhood experiences. The task force that we put together is something that was commissioned by the Chief Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court, Paul Newby, in conjunction with the former director of the Administrative Office of Courts, Andrew Heath, and Ben David, who's a district attorney in Wilmington. And what they've done is put together a task force to look at how we as stakeholders in the justice system can do better, can limit the adverse childhood experiences that we see and deal with in our respective courthouses. And so how we can, limit their exposure, not only in the short-term future, but the long-term future, to redirect people away from the courthouse, away from these negative consequences. So it's really been something that's profound. We've done a lot of work in terms of educating not only judges, but courthouse stakeholders about what are adverse childhood experiences, how they manifest themselves, and being more trauma informed as practitioners, which is something that I think is going to help all the citizens of our community. So it's a 2-year project. We're coming up on the end of our second year. And so we're really, looking forward to going out and doing things in the community. As a part of the task force, I have been able to start a pilot program in Columbus County for something called Success Sequence. Okay, and what the Success Sequence is, it's the idea that if you do 3 things, you have a very, very small chance of living in poverty. You got a greater than 98% chance of escaping poverty if you live in poverty, or never living in poverty if you do these 3 things. If you graduate from high school, or preferably college, if you maintain full-time employment, and wait until you're married or in a serious committed relationship before having children, if you do those 3 things, then your likelihood of living in poverty is next to 0, right? And so we can empower people from a family and from a relationship and from an economic standpoint, then I think the likelihood of them committing crimes or coming into contact with the criminal justice system is also reduced, whether that's as a victim or as a defendant in the criminal justice system. So we've got that pilot program started in Columbus County. We've got a group of about 13 kids from 12 to 18 that we are doing a weekly curriculum with regarding, good decision-making in terms of relationships, goal setting, academic success, career goals, orientation and training, things of that nature, to really get these kids thinking differently about their lives, taking their future seriously, and kind of envisioning that type of success. So that's something that I'm really proud of, and it's something that we're looking to expand into New Hanover County, which is where I'm working now as an assistant public defender, and also into other parts of the state.
Awesome. That's incredible. That is that's the stuff I got into law school for as well. It's to be an advocate for people who don't have an advocate. Growing up, same as you, I didn't know any Black attorneys. Honestly, you were the first one I ever heard about and knew about relationship. So so that's exactly what I want to do and be a part of. And my goal as well. That's my end goal. I'm an advocacy fellow here at Elon. And I'm just trying to learn as much as I can so I can be the best advocate I can.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So you talked a couple of times. You talked about building relationships and networking. I guess 2 questions. What advice do you give the children you work with, and would that advice differ from what you would give a law school student?
It would differ. So when I'm talking to kids that are in middle school or high school, that population, that it could go either way. Their futures are still up in the air. They may not be sure about what it is they want to do with their future. We have so many kids that just live for today, right? They don't think about the consequences of their decisions or their actions, what type of impact that may have on their future. So what I really try to impress upon the youth that I talk to is, be kind to your future self, right? The decisions that you make today need to be decisions that will help you go somewhere positive in the future and not something that will be a detriment to your future success. Mm-hmm. And so those are the things that I really like to harp on in terms of decision-making, who you hang around, the types of people that you put yourself around, and activities that you engage in. Be very thoughtful and mindful of those things. Try to put yourself around individuals that are doing positive things, that are doing the right things, and not associating with individuals that are doing negative things that are going to drag you down. Engage in activities, whether, in school or extracurricular, that are going to build you up. I don't care if something's going to build you up physically, like sports, if it's something that's going to build you up academically, like the Quiz Bowl or something like that, or if it's engaging in your community. Do things that are going to be positive for you now and in the future. My advice to law school students, is different. And for college students as well. Those folks have already made decisions that have landed them in a place of higher education for whatever it is. And so they've already been goal-minded, goal-oriented in order to get to that level. My advice to them is about achieving success at following that, making sure that you do the things that you need to do to take care of your academics, your classwork, because that's the number one priority. Mm-hmm. Making sure you graduate on time and graduate, with a good GPA and a good class rank so that you can avail yourself to some opportunities in a postgraduate world. Then I do harp on the relationships with those folks because they're in it, right? They are in it with their colleagues who or their contemporaries who will be their colleagues in the future. Yeah. And those networks there are so important. Work on building relationships, establishing trust, letting people know who you are and what your plans are, so that people understand, what you're working for. And then lastly, just to be open-minded. A lot of folks go into it saying, oh, I'm never going to practice this type of law, or I only want to do this. Yeah. Well, you never know unless you open yourself up to different type experiences. Perfect example is after my second year in law school, I took the opportunity and took advantage of practicing under the 3rd-year practice rule. What that is, allows you to practice as an attorney, for lack of a better words, under the supervision of a supervising attorney. You get to go in, you can try cases, you can act in the courtroom as if you're an attorney. And so I spent the summer 2009, interning for the Alamance County DA's office under that 3rd year. So I got an opportunity to come in and run district court, essentially as an intern assistant district attorney for that summer. And I loved it. I felt like it was an important job to be an advocate for folks, in the courtroom for victims of crime who couldn't be advocates for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see, when I looked around, they had, I think, one African-American attorney in the office. And I thought that we needed to see more people of color as prosecutors. And so, I really enjoyed that job, and I really thought it would be something that would be impactful on my community. And coming up, I didn't even know what a prosecutor was or what a prosecutor did. Right. But that exposure, it showed me, what the role was all about. And it gave me the confidence after doing it that, I was good at this and I can do this. This is something that I may want to try. And so when I graduated law school, I actually took a job in private practice because that was the first thing that was available to me. But I did that for about 8 months, and then I got my opportunity as an assistant district attorney, and did that for 8.5 years. People particularly in our community, this is something that I wanted to make sure that I addressed. When you walk into that courtroom, number one, minorities are already underrepresented in terms of the bar, right? The attorneys that are there, public attorneys, or whether they're in private practice, we're underrepresented on the bench. We're underrepresented in the clerk's office. And so, there's this kind of, I think when I first started, there was this mentality, particularly in the Black community. I know because I heard it, from friends of mine, like, why do you want to lock people up? This, that, and the third. Mm-hmm. And being not, solely about incarcerating people or putting convictions on folks. A prosecutor's number one responsibility is to seek justice first. And justice can look like many things depending on what type of case it is. It may be offering a deferred prosecution to somebody to make sure that they keep a clean record if they're a first-time offender. Mm-hmm. It may be dismissing a case outright if you look at a case as a prosecutor and you feel like somebody's rights were violated. It may be outright dismissing that case. Or it may be, prosecuting a case and trying a case. That may be what justice requires in a particular case. But in my opinion, the prosecutor is the most important role, most powerful role in a criminal courtroom, because the prosecutor decides if that case even makes it to a judge. The prosecutor has the power of the pen to dismiss a case outright before a judge or a defense attorney has any say-so in it. That prosecutor has a role in deciding what charges that law, or recommending what charges law enforcement may pursue, what type of what type of charge you pursue in the case. Once a charging decision is made, you may want to proceed on a lower charge. Prosecutors have so much power and authority, and this really didn't start coming to light until the Mike Brown case, right? In Ferguson. Mm-hmm. That's national level. I really started to see for the first time that people understood how much power that prosecutors have, and, going forward from then, we've seen more emphasis on prosecution. Prosecutors have been put under spotlight for decisions that they've made in cases, whether to pursue or not pursue charges, particularly when it comes to law enforcement officers who have been involved in questionable actions. So, prosecuting is an important job, and it's important for many reasons, and we need to be represented in terms of diversity in prosecutors' offices across the country. So if there's one thing that anybody takes away from this podcast today and my message, it's that, we can make a difference in our communities in a number of ways as attorneys in private practice, but also as government attorneys, as prosecutors. You have a role to play, certainly as a judge, as I was for a little over 2 years, and now in my current role as an assistant public defender, representing people that are charged with crimes. We have the power to make an impact in all of those roles, and it's important.
Yeah, that's awesome. Why do you think that is? Why do you think? Because that, like you said, in our community, Black people really don't trust the court system. So we know why, because we've been we've had a past of not deserving our trust. But I think things have changed. Like the more I shadow and the more I observe the courtroom, the more I realize that it's a lot more fair than people give it credit for. And that's at least from what I've noticed. Again, I'm still a newbie in this, but at least it's a lot more fair. Like I went to my first observation, not just expected it to be, black people getting the worst and white people getting the best and all, said just not having a fair shake, but it was the opposite, in a lot of ways. Everybody was giving a fair trial. So why do you think, or I guess, what do you think is going to take to get more of our community, more black people, more people of color practicing as attorneys? Because the numbers, I can put it on the screen, but I know it's like less than 10% of all attorneys are African-American, which is just crazy to me. How do you think we get more people involved and wanting to become lawyers?
Well, I mean, I think it's got to start with, the reason, like, again, that why. When we look around and we see at least that perception that African Americans aren't treated fairly or haven't been treated fairly historically, we have to look at, the historical reasons as to why that is, but also we have to have a desire to try to fix that. We have to encourage our kids to go to college, number one, and then pursue their passions and show them what they could do. That's why I try to do things like this and other type of outreach to show that, hey, I look like you and I had experiences like you, young Black person growing up, and you can do this. Here's the path. Here's how you do it. You really have to see something if you want to be it, right? So I think African-American attorneys such as ourselves have a responsibility to the community to reach back and to say, hey, here's how I've achieved this. Here's what you could do if you want to do it, and I will help you get here. So those of us who are in this role need to reach back, show others that it is possible, to the next generation that it is possible. And here's why it's important that you do or you consider this role. And if you want to go to law school, if you want to be an attorney, I'll help you. I'll help you in any way that I can, because I want you to be successful, because I want you to be there for the next generation of our kids to help pull and uplift them. And in terms of, that perception of unfairness, particularly with the court system, the way that I try to combat that, in all of my roles that I've served, and as you mentioned, I've served as a prosecutor for 8.5 years. I was a district court judge for 2 years. And since January, I've been an assistant public defender. So I've been in all three of the roles, right? In that courtroom, at the prosecutor's table, I've been on the bench, and I've been a defense attorney. Yeah. And those roles, people think about things in two ways, right? Either they have a perception of the way they think something is, or they have an experience. They've been there, they've done that. And so when people come into the courtroom that I'm in, regardless of whatever role I was in, I talk to people with respect, regardless of who that person is, because every person is worthy of dignity and respect and being treated that way. Right. You don't talk down to people. Doesn't matter if you're the prosecutor, judge, or defense attorney. You don't talk down or disrespect anybody, because that gives that person has a negative contact with the justice system when that happens. They think you don't respect them. They think you don't see them as an equal, right? As a judge, when I would make a ruling in a case, or I would explain to folks what facts that I heard that I'm relying on and how those facts apply to the law. And this is why I'm making the particular decision that I'm making. And so people at a fundamental level, when it comes to the court experience, they want to be heard. They just want to be heard and feel like they were given a fair process. Mm-hmm. And when you allow them to state their case, and you hear all the facts and all the evidence that each side wants to present, and you make a ruling based on the facts and the law, and you explain that to them, even if you don't rule in their favor, they feel like they were heard, and they understand why the case, why the ruling went a certain way. Yeah. And so I'll tell you how many times as a judge, would make a ruling and explain it to folks. Even when folks lost, they would say, thank you for hearing me. I felt like I've been treated fairly. And as a judge, that's all you can ask for and want. And, as a public defender, you really get a chance to interact directly with hands-on with people who have been charged with crimes, right? They may feel by the very fact that they were charged with this offense that it happened in an unfair way or there was an unfair process. Sometimes that is the case. Sometimes that's not. But it's my job to listen to them, explain the law to them, and how the facts of their particular case apply to the law and try to achieve the best outcome. And so you really have to try to develop trust with people to show them that you care. And when they feel like you care and that you're invested in the outcome of their case is going to affect their lives, they start to trust you, and their experience with the justice system changes because they have an advocate on their side who cares about them and their case. And that type of experience, in my opinion, is how you start to change hearts and minds about, the quote unquote fairness of the justice system. So, in my own way, that's how I try to combat that.
Mm-hmm. I like that. That's also a very American thing to want to be heard, right? I feel like other countries don't really have that, but in America, between the First Amendment and whatever, like everybody just wants to have their voice heard. So that makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. So let's take it back to law school for a second. You went to Central for law school. What was the day? What was the day like? What was the day in the life for you?
I try to treat law school like a job, right? And in the sense that, I would go to law school like I was going to work. And my first class was at 9 or 10, I was there and I was clocked in once I started class, right? So I may have, depending on the day, you might have class until, maybe 12 some days or 2 o'clock some days, but still stay on campus until, 4 or 5, like I'm working a 9 to 5. Mm-hmm. I'm preparing the night before with doing my readings and preparing, the coursework that I need to have for that next day, going to class, taking care of my responsibilities in class, making sure I'm attentive to what's going on and picking up, whatever lesson that the professor is giving us that day, asking questions if I don't understand, going to office hours. And so, that's kind of how I would treat it as a job from day to day. Like, I'm going to be here from this time to this time, regardless of what my classes are. And then I'm going to, take advantage of my breaks in order to study or read or do what I need to do. That way I ensure that it's done. And that was what worked for me. There's other ways of doing it. But I thought that was the most productive use of my time. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of how I try to approach it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, I think that's great advice. I do that most weeks, not every week, but most weeks I definitely do that, or try to anyway. I don't know how much you've been keeping up with it, but how do you think AI is going to affect the profession? Because already in class, a lot of people use AI to like make briefs for them for cases, to help them with just everything from legal writing to writing persuasively to this. You'll be amazed at how people are using AI at the moment. How do you think it's going to, how much do you know about it, and how do you think it's going to affect the profession?
Well, like most people, I started hearing about, Chat GPT in the news and the media and things like that. So I was curious myself. So I jumped on just to, type, a few things in to see what responses that it gave. And I was amazed at the depth of what you could do and what could happen. So, I think it could be like anything else, right? It could be a positive or a negative. We could use this in a way that helps us as attorneys, or, some people can use it in a negative way to abuse it. Like if you get it to write your assignment for law school, that's not helping you, right? That's furthering your knowledge of the subject in a way that's going to help you down the road. I think, it has the capability of being a great tool for attorneys to use for, research purposes or AI. We've got to find a way to make it help us to be more efficient so that we can, serve more people. So I have high hopes for it to be something that can augment attorneys and not something that's a detriment in terms of having, I wouldn't go into court with a brief that's been written by, AI or anybody else.
No. Yeah, because what I figured out too, or one of my professors even said this, but they lie to you. So, I'll type in a case sometimes and then it'll just give me a completely different case. They'll just make up stuff, but they'll always give you an answer, but then they'll make it up. You can even ask it if this is the truth or if this is actually a case, and it'll tell you I'm just a language model. I don't really know what I'm doing. It'll respond to you if it lied to you.
Yeah, see, it's going. Somebody out there's going to rely on it and going to put themselves in some hot water. So you got to be careful with that. And so, I have hopes that it can be used in a positive way that can help attorneys and help society overall in a positive way. But like anything else, man, there's that dark side of what's possible with it, and we certainly don't want to see that.
That's right. That's right. One thing I'm really afraid of is people, fabricating evidence or, text messages or photos that could be used in a trial and it's just completely fake. So that's what I'm I don't know who's like thinking ahead to how to start verifying some of the sources of evidence, but I hope somebody is.
Yeah. And, think about that is truly scary, right? Yeah. For instance, if somebody was charged with assault and they're able to create this AI imposed image of the person that's charged actually, hitting somebody else, that's possible. We know that these images can be created now. And that's really scary because it can have the drastic impacts on people's lives and futures.
Yes.
So, we've got to be on our toes about that. Because that's something that has dangerous potential.
Yeah, 100%. Let's hop into the lightning round real quick. You can answer these questions as fast as possible, or really doesn't matter. Take as long as you need. What's your fondest memory of law school?
Fondest memory of law school, graduating. Man, because it was the culmination of 3 years of hard work. And, the pride that I felt, in that moment on that day was amazing. It was a great day for me and my family. So graduating was a tremendous accomplishment and definitely my fondest memory of law school.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's going to be mine too. What was your lowest point?
My lowest point I would say probably that second semester of my 1L year. There were a number of people that didn't make it back for that second semester. And so I lost a couple of friends that I'd made during that first semester. They didn't quite make the grade. It was in order for them to return. And one just made a decision that law school wasn't for him anymore. Even though he did make the grade. So, that was hard to lose some folks in my section that I had grown close to. But, I had to remember why I was there and, that I had goals that I wanted to accomplish, and that's what kept me going.
Yeah, I'm at the same point. So we do trimesters, but we're finishing up our third trimester, my first, of 1L year. And it's the point where a lot of people are withdrawing academically. Some people have decided to transfer. Some people are just taking time off. So I'm in that same place right now. Luckily, I'm a little older. I already have a wife and kids, so I know exactly, I know the point. Well, I know why I'm here. I have a goal after. Like law school is just a step. It's not the end goal for me. So yeah. So that helps me get through quite a bit. Do you feel like Black men have a different type of pressure in law school?
I will say yes, because there's fewer of us, right? So we have to be on our toes if we are unprepared, or if we are, stepping out of line in some type of way, then I feel like it reflects poorly on us because there's so few of us there. So even though I went to a historically Black college, University, HBCU, School of Law, it was, there were a lot of minorities were still the minority at that school. And that's a lot. That's true at a number of HBCUs in terms of the graduate, particularly law.
Right.
So, while there were probably more African-American men and African-American students in general at Central, as opposed to maybe a Wake Forest or Elon or Carolina or what have you, still relatively fewer in number. And so, I would visualize that and see that. I'm like, okay, I need to do what I need to do. So it either real or imagined, that pressure is there, and it was there for. Do you?
Yeah, I feel it pretty heavy, and especially being a father in law school, there's like so few of us, so that's why I kind of wanted to start this podcast also, just to get some mentorship from people who've been there, who understand, even though we have like different backgrounds and different history, we're still like Black men, so we kind of understand what the other is going through. So I always try to check in on the other Black fathers and other Black students at school just to make sure they're okay. And hopefully have somebody to vent to, even if we're not best of friends. But I asked that question also because when I talk to some of my classmates and colleagues who aren't Black men, it's almost like they're there to prove somebody wrong. You know what I'm saying? Or there to prove somebody right. Where it's like, for Black men, it's like it's an expectation we're supposed to be here almost. You know what I mean? Or it's like it's like something else on top of it. Well, I'm not here to prove anybody wrong. I'm here because I'm like supposed to be here almost. I haven't quite developed it yet, but.
Well, think about it. So if you've made it to law school, then you were most likely a studious young person, and people identify that and they see that and as when you're young and say, oh, you're going places, you stand out. And so there's expectation that happens, at least that's what happened for me. Growing up, like, oh, this kid's very intelligent. Like, he could be somebody. He could be a doctor or a lawyer, and as you start to have success, people say, okay, well, he's going to achieve something else now. He's going to do something else now. And so when you graduate high school, oh, he's going to go to a good college. You go to a good college, you're like, oh, you're going to do something else. And so there's that expectation that you talk about too. That's a real thing as well.
Yeah. And especially with kids, it's kind of wild because I'm in Greensboro, family's back home in Gastonia. That's literally 100 miles away. So I only go home on the weekends to see them, and sometimes during the week. But it just gets hard. It gets hard sometimes. What was a resource that helped you while you were in school?
A resource that helped me while I was in school, you just touched on it. It was the mentorship aspect, right? I was fortunate enough to, when I was a 1L, I had a 3L that was from my hometown that knew me well. And he had been where I had been, obviously, because 2 years prior he was a 1L. So I leaned on that mentorship and that experience of him and some of his friends who all happened to be Black men who had had some of the same type of life experiences that I had, to really show me the way as to how to be successful, how to make it through that first year, how to be a successful law student. So, I was really, really grateful to have that guidance that was important to be able to shepherd me through. And then also, there's a gentleman by the name of Mike Silver. I always give him props. Mike Silver was a law student that was a few years ahead of me that had created what we call the silver lining.
Okay.
And the lining is an outline for your 1L year, right? Mm-hmm. So it would have, synopsis of the cases that we were to read, just a breakdown of essentially the course. So it's kind of like a guide for you through a particular section, through your particular class in that section. So, that was tremendous. And I happened Mike is not on the ACES task force, but he does work for the administrative office of the court. So I'll see him when I'm going to task force meetings and things like that. And I always heap praise upon him for developing that outline, because it's something that really helped me to get through school, to understand, what the important facts of the cases were, what I was looking for, how to break down particular law and understand it in a way that was relevant to me. So those are two resources that were invaluable to me, that being the mentorship of others, and then the outlines that Mike Silver had created.
Yeah. Shout out to Mr. Silver. Yeah, he's a real one for that one. I wish I had that. We do have now we use Quimby. I don't know if you ever heard of that or not, but Quimby and at this point, ChatGPT is going to be the next one that I'm sure a lot of people use for resources. Who is your favorite professor and why?
My favorite professor in law school, probably Mary Wright. All right. And Mary Wright, she had previously been the dean at Central Law School. She was somebody who had obtained the nickname Bloody Mary. Okay. Had that nickname. She was our contracts professor. She would write in, red ink on your essays and just chop you up with that red pen. But she was unique. She really cared about her students. She was very, very intelligent, and someone that I truly appreciate for the way that she did her job. Because a lot of people are, robotic and uncaring. She's very caring. She's very personable, and she's somebody who gets it. And I really appreciated her for being the type of professor that she was. I had her both semesters of my 1L year, and she didn't play any games. She was challenging, but she was nurturing too. And so that, I didn't know it at the time, but that's what I needed, and so I appreciate her for that.
Two more questions. Being that you were in every on all sides of the bench in the criminal courtroom and I guess civil courtroom also, in many of those, what advice do you have for law students that struggle with legal writing?
Keep doing it. Keep practicing, because that's going to be an important part of whether you pass the bar exam or not. Your ability to write is so important, because that is going to be one method of being successful as an attorney, your ability to convey your arguments through briefs or motions that you write. And so it is a critical skill. If you're struggling, you need to use your resources, because they're there. A lot of universities or a lot of law schools have writing centers where you can go and get extra work, get extra help. That's critical. And so fortunately for me, I wasn't somebody who struggled with writing. That was one of the areas that I excelled at. I recognize that that's not true for everybody. But you need to be a strong writer. For no other reason than, that bar exam is no joke, and half writing. And so you need to be able to communicate yourself clearly, effectively, and efficiently through writing. So the way that you get better at that is that you continue to do it, write, practice, challenge yourself. And that's the only way to get better.
So as a judge, or like, what stood out as a well-written, like, what did you look for that said this person's a really good writer? Like, what things would you see?
Being able to identify an issue, state what your issue is succinctly, right? You don't need to go in and all around the point, get to it, right? State what your issue is, be clear about it, and then have the supporting documentation, whether it's case law, whether it's some particular evidence, right there in a way that's easy to understand, that's well supported, that's clearly communicated. That's something that I would look for. always. So it kind of goes hand in hand with being prepared. A lot of times the best attorneys, be it through verbal argument or through written briefs, were those that were the most prepared, that knew what their issue was, that knew their case. And the more control and command you have over the information, over what the case is about, you're able to create a written document or an argument in front of the judge, because you actually know your case. You're able to demonstrate that through the written word or the spoken word.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. And then last question, law school is notorious for being causing anxiety, depression, drug abuse, all the other worst things, so how did you deal with your mental health while in law school? Like what strategies did you use to stay centered and focus on the end goal?
Wow, what a great question. With me, I'm somebody that's always been big on balance, right? So I knew that the business had to be handled, that being the classwork and the academics that came with law school. But I also knew that I was somebody that had to level that out. And the way that I did that was staying in close contact with friends and family, like maintaining those relationships, still going and doing things where I could, making time to go to events or to attend social outings with friends where I could, to balance that out, to maintain who I was.
Right.
I'm a reader, and so I like to read nonfiction. That kind of fell off during law school because I was doing so much legal reading. But what I did pick up was exercising a little more. Law school, I was in probably the best shape of my life just because I would dedicate time to trying to move my body and to exercise. And so that went to another level during like bar study, for example. And I'll just do this as a plug and as a reminder for folks that are studying for the bar. That is an intense period of your life. It's an intense time. You have to find a way to, number one, prepare yourself for that bar exam by studying hard and for hours on end every day. But you still need that balance. You need some time away. You need to, distance yourself from it for some time. And so, I would do that by just breaking up the study sessions, making sure I worked out that day. Sometimes I would work out twice a day to get away from it, but also do something that was, positive for me. Yeah. So I would remind people to continue that balance, to strive for balance as you're doing that. Law school can be tough. It can. And a lot of times your family and friends can't relate to it because they haven't experienced it. So what I would tell folks is to, you don't have to go through it alone. We know now, so much mental health is talked about so much more now, so much more prevalently now. And that's a great thing. You got to maintain that balance. You have to be able to, maintain your sanity to get through this, because it can be tough. But if you find a fellow student or somebody that's been through it, like I had with those 3 L's, try to find you some sense of community within your law school to help you, because you're gonna need it. At some point, you need somebody else, whether it's a study partner, whether it's somebody just to vent to that can kind of understand what you're going through. That's so helpful. So, it goes back to relationships that I was talking about and networking and meeting people and showing them who you are, being your authentic self. Again, that's why I got the be you, they'll adjust. Authentic self, be true to who you are and be true to your mission as an attorney or as a student and then as an attorney.
Beautiful. Quintin, man, thank you so much. Yeah, your honor. Thank you so much for for coming on the show, man. I can't thank you enough. And you've been you don't know this, but you've been like a mentor in some ways, because I've always been like, I'm like a couple steps behind you just because you're older, going to Carolina and then going to law school. It took me 12 years to get to law school, where you went straight ahead. But yeah.
I'm proud of you. You're doing wonderful things. You are destined for greatness. This podcast that you're putting together is going to help people that you don't even realize.
I hope so.
And that is so amazing. I'm honored to be here with you to talk about this. I appreciate those kind words that you said, man, and you're going to do great things. And one day I'll be interviewing you about your successes and sharing that with my children. Like, look at what you can be. Look at who you can become, and you're gonna.
Hey, thank you. That means a lot. Thank you.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you everybody out there for watching. You can follow us on social media, like, subscribe, all that stuff. But just thank you for watching. I hope this helps. And yeah, we'll talk to you later. Peace out.